It's October, and that means spooky season. And I thought, what better way to be spooky than to debunk some climate and solarpunk related conspiracies? Because here's the thing, I've always been fascinated by conspiracy theories, and the iceberg of eco-related conspiracy theories goes really deep. I'm not even talking about simple climate denialism, no. Apparently the World Economic Forum, the deep state, and even aliens are plotting against the free will of humanity by conspiring for a solarpunk future. Why? Well, that's left to be discovered. So voila! Here is a beautiful eco-conspiracy iceberg I created just for your entertainment. For those of you unfamiliar with conspiracy icebergs, the top is the most common or normal conspiracies, and the bottom is the more unhinged. Then at the side you've got the path someone takes as they move deeper and deeper through the conspiracy layers. So I'm just going to go through the layers one by one. Let's start with the top two layers, which are pretty standard opinions about climate change, and then we'll go below the waterline to the really juicy stuff. So the first thing I've put on here is of course the idea that climate change isn't real. I feel like nowadays people have generally shifted away from the belief that climate change isn't real at all, and more towards the belief that climate change is real but it's a natural cycle, or that climate change is being created by the deep state, as I'll talk about later on in this video. Anyway, I'm not going to waste time in this video explaining why climate change is real, because does it even need explaining? And there are many other video essay channels that cover this kind of stuff already, so I'll link a few below in the description if you're interested in learning more about that. Okay, so at the start of each of these sections, I'm going to put a little video I found on a Facebook group I've used as the source for most of this video, which happens to be my local anti-climate change Facebook group, which always has some very interesting stuff going on it. Let's start with the anti-vegan conspiracies. Let's have a little watch of this video here.
Well, here we go. Lab-grown meat. First country in the world to introduce it. Check this out. Would you eat that? Would you really eat that? The only thing that I can suggest is when it comes into the shops, whoever stocks it, boycott. Just don't go anywhere near them, because they're part of the system. They're the ones that want to change our lives forever. Lab-grown meat, where the do we go from here? It was bad enough years ago when the around with our fruit and veg.
My guy, we have been around with our fruit and veg for millennia. Do you think carrots have always looked like that? To quote this overview, wild carrots are small, spindle-like, white and slim. They are both aromatic and acrid, making their flavour undesirable, and therefore wild carrots are not a popular dietary option and are considered weeds in most countries. In fact, carrots were only first cultivated around 5,000 years ago, and then slowly turned into the domesticated purple or yellow versions of what we eat today. And the orange carrot we find in supermarkets today, well, that only actually started being selectively bred for by the Netherlands in the 17th century. This is not a new phenomenon. We have always been selectively breeding or genetically modifying the plants we eat, so this is the same with many other fruits and veg as well. Anyway, I do kind of get this guy's aversion to lab-grown meat. It's a very strange and new emerging technology, and under our current capitalist system, it is very probable that corners will be cut to prioritise profit. But like, that is the same in every industry. And so here we have today's recurring phrase for this video. That's not a conspiracy, it's just capitalism. But the anti-vegan propaganda extends far out beyond people just being a bit scared or apprehensive about lab-grown meat. It doesn't help that tabloid newspapers like The Telegraph hit these people hard with titles such as "No meat, no dairy, and 3 outfits a year. Welcome to Sadiq Khan's plan for London." Let's have a little read. Picture the scene. You have just made it through the door from work, although not by car because private vehicles no longer exist. You change out of your work clothes into something more comfortable, perhaps one of 3 new items of clothing you're allowed to buy every year. Then it is downstairs for dinner, since all this virtue is hungry work. But don't forget that meat and dairy are off the menu, so instead you might like to daydream about getting away from it all, only to remember that you used up your quota of 1 short-haul return flight every 3 years last summer. Okay, so it's of no wonder with articles like these coming out all the time that people are really scared of losing the right to eat their steaks. Look, I found another video spouting the same claims.
Do you know what the C40 consortium is? Yeah, well, they're a lot of fun. 40 of the biggest cities in the world. They've all signed on to this. So what's their agenda? You can't even believe this is true. 1 short-haul flight per person every 3 years. 95% reduction in private automobile ownership. No meat consumption.
I know.
No meat consumption,
I mean,
right? And finally, 3 items of clothing a year. That's their plan.
No.
Absolutely. 100%.
3 items of clothing.
C40. It's 3 items of clothing. How much bloody clothing do you need? The planet's at stake.
Wait, isn't that Jordan Peterson, the guy who only eats beef, salt and water? No wonder he's scared of all meat being banned. I mean, he'd just wither away. Anyway, let's take a step back and actually evaluate this C40 report everyone's getting so riled up about. As I thought, the only thing I could find from a brief skim of the C40's website about plant-based diets was this: encourage an overall increase in the consumption of healthy plant-based foods, steering away from unsustainable and unhealthy diets. The rest of their section on food mostly seems to talk about food waste and food sovereignty. But let's say that this C40 really was trying to force plant-based diets on people. Firstly, although I'm generally against forcing anyone to do anything, many people, including myself, can be perfectly healthy and happy on a vegetarian or vegan diet. They're just plants. A little bit of green on your plate isn't going to kill you. Secondly, it's long been known that both the meat and dairy industries already pay to run massive campaigns to push the idea to people that meat is, healthy, sustainable, and not at all causing the mass deforestation of the Amazon. They already spend so much money on marketing and disinformation. Surely if there really was a group out there trying to force plant-based diets on everyone, the meat and dairy industry would use their billions of dollars to try and stop them in their tracks. But this doesn't seem to be happening. And thirdly, why would governments want to ban meat and dairy? Like, what is their incentive? Most governments are still motivated by profit and economic growth. And with the amount of lobbying that the meat and dairy industry do, I don't know why governments would suddenly just turn around to these meat and dairy industries and just go, nah, we don't want you anymore. Because at the end of the day, it is giant companies that are in the middle of all this, not, poor Joe down the road and his 2 cows. I mean, at COP28 alone, there were 120 delegates from some of the largest companies in the world, including Nestle and Bayer. And Nestle literally grossed £82 billion in sales in 2023. I'm sorry, my guy, but the world's elites just don't care that much about whether you have a slice of steak for dinner. There is money to be made in the meat and dairy industry. There is literally no incentive for them to stop you from eating meat and dairy. Once again, it's not a conspiracy, it's just capitalism.
Here's a little thought. I mean, it could be far-fetched this. I could be off my rocker just thinking things like this and making stuff up.
Yeah, I'm gonna hazard a guess that you probably are.
So, it's no secret they are messing with the weather.
Who's they?
They are playing God and changing the weather. First of all, that is in itself. That is wrong. That is dangerous. That is it is not up to us to change the weather. Well, not us, to these idiots that think it's a good idea to change the weather. Okay? It's no secret either that they're blocking out the sun in order to save the planet, apparently, which is, again, the most ridiculous thing ever. But they are also growing. These same people...
Who are these people?
It's actually the same people that are changing the weather, that are blocking out the sun. They are growing fake meats.
Ah, and we're back to the fake meats. Anyway, let's talk about the main claim in this video, that a mysterious they are blocking out the sun and manipulating the weather. This is something that seems to crop up again and again, with recently even the US politician Taylor Greene basically claiming that the Democratic Party weather-engineered Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton to wipe out voters in Republican areas just so Kamala Harris could win the US election. It's utterly bonkers, but what more do we expect from the US at this point? But let's backtrack a bit and assess the claim. Can humans actually control the weather? Well, it turns out there is some basis to this conspiracy, because we can, to a degree. Mass deforestation can literally reduce precipitation. And then there's cloud seeding, which involves seeding existing clouds with silver iodide to give water droplets a particle to condense around, which allows them to become heavy enough to fall as rain, which then increases rainfall by 10 to 15%. In April, Dubai suffered severe flooding, and there were many claims that this was due to cloud seeding. To be fair, the United Arab Emirates government had been using cloud seeding to mitigate drought. But professors from the University of Reading said that the operational cloud seeding the UAE does do isn't enough to cause such drastic floods. Anyway, cloud seeding, from what I've read, just seems to be about turning existing clouds into rain, which doesn't really seem to have much to do with blocking out the sun. Of course, then there's this whole conspiracy about chemtrails, the supposed spraying of toxic chemicals by the thousands of commercial aircraft that fly every day. Yeah, but this has already been debunked multiple times by scientists, investigative journalists, and even the US Environmental Protection Agency. The trails seen behind aircraft are, of course, just water vapor. The conspiracy theorists are kind of right, though. I mean, planes do spew harmful chemicals into the air. You know what those are? Fossil fuels. And you know why we still have so many fossil fuels being put into the air, which is consequently heating up the planet? Well, it's not a conspiracy, it's just capitalism. There is, of course, another part to this whole conspiracy. Carbon and carbon capture. Here is an image I found on the local Facebook group I mentioned earlier in this video that I've been using as a source for a lot of the videos and pictures you'll find throughout this video. Whilst this is obviously completely ridiculous, the group then goes on to further express their doubt with carbon capture methods. And you know what? This is crazy, but I kind of agree with them. Specifically, this group got all wound up about a new carbon capture project that was supposed to happen off the coast of a region of the UK called Cornwall. Basically, this for-profit Canadian company wanted to add magnesium hydroxide to a wastewater pipe going out into the sea. The company claimed that this could reduce the acidity of the ocean, thus removing carbon dioxide from the water, allowing the ocean to draw in more carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and so acting as a carbon capture method. However, basically no research had been done on the impact that this would have on the surrounding fragile ocean ecosystem, especially in this bay, which hosts grey seal populations and also regularly has other cetaceans coming through like dolphins. It's basically kind of the same as when companies plonk down loads of non-native monocultures of trees in an area to draw in carbon, thus completely destroying the biodiversity of that area. Anyway, I found this snippet from a Guardian article about this whole ordeal. Planetary's first small-scale trial in Cornwall was conducted in tandem with Southwest Water in September 2022, without widespread public knowledge. Southwest Water? Oh wait, the company regularly dumping sewage into our oceans without processing it properly? And the one where the chief execs got hundreds of thousands of pounds in bonuses, meanwhile all of it was flowing straight into the sea? It is funny how all of this ties together, isn't it? You don't even have to be that much of a conspiracy theorist to start to go down the rabbit hole. Carbon capture and manipulating the weather, and anything else that causes damage to local ecosystems is but not because it's being done by some cabal of hidden elites with a secret agenda. Because the agenda isn't a secret. Companies just want to make more money, most politicians just want to make more money. Our world is literally run on a system of economic growth. Everything has to keep growing to survive. So once again, my dear conspiracists, you're kind of right. Except that it's not a conspiracy, it's just capitalism.
So guys, this is essentially a 15-minute neighborhood, right? People think, oh, we got to stop the building of 15-minute neighborhoods. I get something in the future coming along. A lot of people don't understand is that 15-minute neighborhoods have been here for a while. This is one here, for example, at Paddington in London here. But you've got all of this, so it looks like it's really pretty when you first see it, right? They've got all of these big chain restaurants and stores and stuff. You don't need a car. There's definitely no roadway for any kind of cars or anything like that. You won't need a car in a 15-minute neighborhood.
Oh look, a pedestrianised avenue where people can walk around freely without having to fear about being squashed by a car? That must be a terrible idea.
Look at the big chains, right? Nutfield Health, get your big pharma crap from us here. Pret a Manger, get your crappy coffee from here. Itsu, what's that? Korean big Chinese restaurant. You got Sainsbury's local in the corner there. You've got all of this, all of the flats, everything. And right here you've got, if you can't see this because of the camera, this is the propaganda. They've got a giant TV. Guess what it's playing? It's the BBC. It's the state's mouthpiece. It's always playing 24/7. It's the news, it's bollocks.
Okay, I mean, he's kind of got a point with that one. My guy, your complaint doesn't seem to be with the actual concept of a 15-minute city. It's with the gentrification of an area, the pricing out of locals, the recurring for-profit chain shops rather than independent community spaces. Surprise, it's capitalism you're against, not the 15-minute city. But let's take some steps back and analyse why this is the case. Firstly, what even is a 15-minute city? Well, as I explored in my solarpunk housing video, linked above here somewhere if you want more about that, a 15-minute city is an urban planning concept where everyone in an area has access to the amenities they need within a 15-minute walk, bus, tram or cycle from where they live. Think shops, doctors, parks, libraries, schools, etc. It's something that's cropped up a lot recently in an effort to make towns more livable, more walkable, more sustainable, and just generally better places to live in. Personally, I'm a big fan of 15-minute cities. I mean, I live in one. Okay, it's more of a coastal town than a city, but it still fits the concept. I can walk to supermarkets, the library, bookstores, my local coffee shops, sports clubs, pubs, independent stores, my favourite Saturday local donut stand, my local park, community projects, the harbour, and even the beach within 15 to 20 minutes. So I'm pretty lucky. And I definitely wouldn't trade this back to living in the suburbs where I grew up, where you basically had to drive to get anywhere. But apparently some people would rather live in a place where they need to use their car to get anywhere because, you know, freedom. Yeah, apparently these 15-minute cities are actually an evil plan to keep everyone cooped up where they live, controlled and monitored by the evil state. I mean, once again, I kind of don't blame the conspiracy theorists. Like, with how our government in the UK has literally kept pummeling us with measure after measure of austerity, and is literally even locking people up in prison for speaking about potentially doing a peaceful climate protest. I completely understand why they'd be fearful. But let's remember what's the main motivating factor for the state under capitalism? Money. And surprise, surprise, the 15-minute city, as well as being good for our well-being, is also very helpful for the all-powerful god that presides over us, the economy. It's no wonder then that this is something the powers that be are considering investing in. Once again, it's not a conspiracy, it's just capitalism. To be fair, even if the 15-minute city was less economically viable, I still feel like it wouldn't be that much of a red flag that it was just being proposed, you know? Like, sure, the British government is and there's a lot about it that is not to be trusted, but that doesn't mean that every single person working for the civil service is also and not to be trusted. I'm sure there are plenty of genuine people in urban planning who have been trying to push for this kind of thing for a long time, and the proposal of the 15-minute city is a result of their hard work. But these conspiracy theorists don't see that. All they see is a conspiracy to lock everyone down and keep them imprisoned within 15 minutes of their own home. My question is just, why? Again, what is the incentive? Because keeping people to one small area is going to drastically reduce the economy. We already saw it during the COVID lockdowns. So why would the government want to do this? They literally have no incentive to do so. It would lose them money. This is exactly the same with the supposed climate lockdowns, the idea that global elites are making up climate change to try and restrict us. And let's not forget to give a little mention to the old ULEZ scheme, which is literally just an area around London where vehicles are taxed more to go into to try and help reduce air pollution. Apparently this is a further restriction of freedom. Of course, the car, a fossil fuel powered, hulking machine made by for-profit companies, is the ultimate bastion of freedom, and thus any restrictions on it is in order to lock up the world for the Great Reset.
First of all, what is this Great Reset? The Great Reset is actually the name of a book by a very prominent advocate of it. His name is Klaus Schwab, and Klaus Schwab's thesis in his book is that governments and societies, the world, should, quotes, seize the opportunity of the public health and economic crisis to reimagine the world and radically change policies. Now, in what ways? I would describe it as a grab bag of left-wing ideas for less freedom and more government, for more government intervention, for policies that would, I think, create massive poverty, particularly energy policies that he is advocating. So Klaus Schwab, by the way, is the president and founder of the World Economic Forum, also known as the Davos Summit. I call it the biggest gathering of global hypocrites in history. It's a little ski village in Switzerland, and every, I think, February, a couple of thousand super rich people, a lot of billionaires, millionaires, global CEOs, and politicians fly into Davos with hundreds of private airplanes. They go into Switzerland and they spend a week basically lecturing the rest of the world, including especially working women and men, about how they should reduce their carbon footprint. The hypocrisy in that crowd is so thick you can't even cut it with a knife.
My guy, that's just wealth inequality, driven by, guess what? Capitalism.
If we're actually all in this together, like we keep saying, then how about we focus on the crisis, on protecting lives and livelihoods, helping people get through this, and how about after that, instead of exploiting the crisis to impose on democratic societies a whole bunch of failed socialist policy ideas, How about instead we get refocused on generating economic growth?
These people manage to tie together so many conflicting ideas into a narrative that just doesn't even make sense. Just a minute ago, you were literally criticizing billionaires and wealth inequality. Then you had a jab at socialist policies without even really understanding what socialism actually means. And then you want to improve people's livelihoods by furthering economic growth? But capitalism is literally what causes wealth inequality and the billionaires you mentioned in the first place. This guy is definitely taking advantage of their audience to further their conservative narrative by giving them a very mixed narrative. As you can see, all the conspiracies I've talked about so far fit into this one main narrative. It's called the Great Reset, or the New World Order. And as you can see in this video, a lot of conspiracy theorists think that this is powered by one all-seeing, all-knowing, all-powerful organization, the World Economic Forum. Now, even though the World Economic Forum is a non-profit and does claim to be impartial, it does in fact kind of push towards economic growth, not socialism as that video would suggest. I mean, just literally take a look at this book by Klaus Schwab, the aforementioned founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, published in 2021. It's called Stakeholder Capitalism, a global economy that works for progress, people, and capitalism. These conspiracy theorists think that a guy who is literally trying to sell a book that is glorifying capitalism is also trying to push socialist policies. It doesn't make any sense. Once again, the answer is lying right in front of everyone's eyes. It's not a group of shadowy elites or scary socialists that are trying to manipulate you. It's literally just capitalism, an economy that must grow at all costs. An economy that forces you to labour day in and day out, mostly towards things that don't help society, so someone else, somewhere else, can rake in all the profits. An economy that is driven by the colonialism of the global south. An economy that is driving species to extinction and the planet to heat up to dangerous levels. It's all capitalism, my guys. And it's not a conspiracy. It's right in front of all of our eyes. It's just so obvious that these conspiracy theorists see straight past it and are then manipulated by these very same capitalists into blaming something else that isn't real. The good news though is that we can change capitalism. We aren't all powerlessly stuck to live in this extractive system forever. And you know what? There are one group of conspiracy theorists that already know that. The alien believers. Okay, so this last conspiracy is so niche and so deep that it's not even circulated on that anti-climate Facebook group I've been using to reference most of this video. The reason I have heard of this conspiracy is thanks to someone I know who genuinely believes that many species of aliens are interacting with the Earth right now and are going to shape the future of all of our lives here. And it's not just this person, there are quite a few people who believe this Star Trek-esque lore is actually reality. I'll give you a quick lowdown. There's a galactic federation with many different alien species, both good and bad, who are working with many different military and secret governmental factions on Earth, both good and bad, including, of course, the deep state. These aliens have bases in the sea, on the moon, on Mars, on Jupiter. Hell, apparently there's even a species of ant-like aliens that have been living beneath our feet, below ground, on Earth, all this time. Apparently the reason why most humans don't know about all this yet is because we haven't quite reached the level of enlightenment or higher consciousness that is required as a species to be able to know about all the stuff that's been going on both above and below us for millennia. Yeah, because by the way, these galactic federations of aliens have been here for like a really long time, and they also helped to build the pyramids and, you know, Atlantis. Anyway, I'm digressing. This web of conspiracies is so deep, someone should actually make a full documentary about all of this. These people even have conferences with speakers and authors and UFO sightings. But back to climate change. When I asked the person I know what all of this means for climate change and the climate crisis, this is what they said. These aliens will share off-world technologies which are believed to already be in possession of the elites. Once these elites will be removed by the good aliens and the Galactic Federation, then this advanced technology will be shared with us and will help to clean our rivers, clean up the atmosphere, and restore the natural balance of flora and fauna to the planet, including with more advanced clean energy technologies. Apparently, this will then also progress to giving us medic-based style heal-all technologies, removing capitalism, and eventually even removing money completely as humanity becomes more and more enlightened. Eventually, humankind will also just become another higher consciousness species that is part of the Galactic Federation, living on Earth without money or hierarchy, where everyone has access to their needs and desires and lots of free times to focus on creative projects and relationships rather than just pointless labour. You've heard it here first, folks. It's the aliens that are going to bring us a solarpunk, anarcho-communist utopia. Now, the problem I have with this whole web of conspiracies isn't that it's actively harmful to like the solarpunk and climate and social movements. In fact, what these people are hoping and believing will happen is literally just anarchism, with a sprinkling of alien help. My problem is more, why? Why do we have to wait around for aliens to bring us all this? Why can't we just, do it ourselves? These people are so close, yet they've put up so many stories, so many barriers in between the society that we have now and the society that we could create. We don't need aliens to come in and give us fancy technologies to show us how to build a solarpunk society. We can literally just do it ourselves through building grassroots, horizontally organized movements. We are not powerless. If you want to know more about how we can do this, click above somewhere for the link to my video on prefiguration. I hope you enjoyed today's video. A bit different to my usual stuff, but I felt like doing something a bit lighthearted and spooky, especially as an excuse just to wear this hat, cause it's a pretty epic hat. Let me know in the comments below what crazy climate or other kind of conspiracies you've heard of. And let me know if you enjoyed this video and if you'd like me to make more of these kinds of more lighthearted videos as well. And remember folks, it's not a conspiracy, it's just capitalism. Okay, bye! See you in the next one!